Hi everyone, good morning. Hope you all can hear me. So today, we are going to discuss about the latest amendments on TCS with effect from today onwards. Uh, Hope everybody are aware about this particular change or update. So, it's time. Then we are going to start the webinar. First of all, I would like to thank everyone to join for the webinar. Uh, Today is the actual effective date, so I think it will be a great help for all of you. I would like to request everyone to mute yourself, and the session will take about half an hour time, and after that we will have a half an hour session for question and answers. So that time you can ask your questions through chat, and our team and myself will be answering your questions. So I request you to listen for first half an hour, and the next half an hour will be the question and answer session. So please mute yourself until we complete the first half an hour. Thank you. Hope everyone can hear using your computer's audio. Please check your audio. If you are facing any issues, please mention it in the chat so that our team can help you out. I hope most of the people know about relativity. So relativity is into solving major problems of payroll taxation and payroll lodgement activities, and we provide solutions for our clients to have a better employee experience. Most of our clients are based out from Bangalore, Chennai, and Coimbatore, and our corporate office is located in Coimbatore. So today we are going to talk about these items. These are the list of items that we are going to discuss it today. So the basics of TCS, and what are the changes that has been implemented from today onwards. These are the major items that we are going to discuss from today onwards, and what are the action items that we have to consider. So firstly, we would like to give an introduction of the TCS. So, it is basic, right? Everyone knows what is TDS, because TDS is applicable for all of the organizations where we receive services and we provide some of the goods which are applicable for TDS. And for TCS, it was applicable only for certain companies all these days, but it will be applicable for most of the goods from today onwards. So we are going to discuss about that. So the goods which are covered until today onwards, the goods which are covered until 30th September, which was yesterday. So as we all know that these are all not regular goods that we sell from our respective organizations. So there are some goods that we have listed here. These are the goods which were applicable till yesterday. The TCS section is 206C of 1, and the goods which are applicable till yesterday was tender leaves and timber. We are going to share this PPT anyway. I'm not going to take much time on this particular slide because we already know about it, and we have mentioned the rates applicable for these goods. And there is another section called 206C of 1C, which is a grant of license, lease, etc. for parking lot or toll plaza or mining or quarrying. So these are the items which are already there under TCS. And we also have another section called 206C of 1F, which is applicable for the automobiles. So when we sell a particular vehicle more than 10 lakhs, the TCS is applicable at 1%. So if you see the third column, where we have mentioned the reduced rate from 14th of May is nothing but after we have this COVID issues, the CBDT has reduced the tax percentage of 25% from the actual rate. So that is why wherever you have the existing rate, we have the reduced rate rate, and this is applicable till 31st March 21. And after which we are not very sure whether it is going to change or it is going to continue. That, I mean, we cannot discuss at this point of time. So the TCS was applicable, if you see the 206C of 1, so or this 61C or 1F. So most of the goods are is not a common thing that everyone will sell or will purchase. It's a kind of different, right? So the common item which we usually have is scrap. So most of the companies used to sell scrap, and they used to collect TCS. So when we talk about scrap, it is if we are going to use that scrap for manufacturing or producing some other product, then the TCS is not applicable. But if you are going to use it for the trading purposes, when I'm going to purchase a scrap and I'm going to do a trading using that scrap, then the TCS is applicable. So that is the existing process, and it will continue, and there is no change in the existing product which are applicable for TCS. So the major point why we all have joined today to discuss about the changes or updates that has happened from today onwards, which is 1st October 2020. We are going to spend more time on that instead of spending the time on the existing items. So the latest amendments. So what are the latest amendments that we have from today onwards? So today is the right time, I think, because everyone can able to relate to the changes and updates that we have to follow from today onwards. There are two major sections that CBDT have included under 206C. So the first section is nothing but 206C of 1G, which is related to the remittance outside India. So the first items, if you see, when I do a remittance outside India, more than 7 lakhs under LRS, and LRS is nothing but liberalized remittance scheme. It is already exist, but when I do LRS, when I do a transaction under LRS, till yesterday there was no TCS until 2,50,000 USD. But from today onwards, if I transfer more than 7 lakhs under LRS, TCS is applicable at 5% for the amount exceeds 7 lakhs. So for example, if I'm going to transfer 10 lakhs today, for first 7 lakhs, there is no TCS. And for the rest of the 3 lakhs, I have to pay 5% of TCS to my bank. To whatever the more that I'm transferring, so I have to pay additional 5%, and bank will collect additional 5% from me to transfer the entire amount to my the person to transfer. And the second point is it is common, right? So, most of the times we transfer funds to our son or daughter or somebody who's studying abroad. So we get a loan from here and we used to transfer the funds to the outside country. So in that case, for first level 7 lakhs, there is no TCS, and the amount which exceeds more than 7 lakhs, 0.5% we have to collect TCS. The bank will collect TCS. When it is a educational loan, it is the TCS rate is very less. But if I'm transferring for some other purposes, then the TCS rate is at 5%. So these are the usual, common items that people does. And the third is when I pay to a tour package program, like maybe for myself or my family or my friends, whatever it is, if I am making a payment from my bank account to a tour package, which is overseas tour package program. So if I'm transferring more than 7 lakhs, then again TCS will be applicable at 5%. The same like the first point. So this is about the section 206C of 1G, and the next is a very important section, which is 206C of 1H, which is applicable for most of us. And we are all, I think most of us are connected to this webinar to understand about this particular section. So we are going to discuss in detail about this particular section today. So this is for sale of goods. So for all these years, there is no TDS or TCS for the sale of goods. But from today onwards, we have to collect TCS at 0.1%. It is 0.1 is the actual percentage, but since because of this COVID there is a reduction of 25 percentage, right? So in that sense it is 0.075 percentage. So this is applicable from today onwards. So there are some terms and conditions to collect TCS under this particular section, which we are going to discuss in the further slides. So we are going to discuss in detail about the remittance made to foreign country, which is, I mean, we discussed, right, what is 1G. So we are going to discuss about that in detail. So this is applicable to whom? So as we discussed, this is applicable for the sale of overseas tour packages and the forex purchase under LRS scheme, and for the educational transfer of educational loan under LRS. So it will be applicable for these three items. And who are all exempted from this particular section? So what are the exceptions that we have under this section? So when we have a TDS liability for a particular transaction, see, we have 195, right? When I transfer that amount, we collect usually TDS of 195. So when there is this TDS of 195 applicable, then this 206C of 1G will not be applicable. And I mean TCS will not be applicable. And when the buyer is from the central government or state government or embassy, whatever is mentioned here, right? So when the buyer is the list here, then for the central and state government it is not applicable. You can see the local authority or municipality. So for those people also, this TCS is not applicable. So the next items, which is very important for today's discussion, we are going to discuss about the sale of goods under section 1H, I mean 206C of 1H. This is going to create major impact in the organization, I mean the manufacturing industry, people who are going to sell the products, goods, right? So for these companies, it is going to create a major impact from today onwards. So we are going to discuss about this now. So this is applicable for whom? To whom this 206C of 1H is applicable? So the companies or the individuals who whose turnover exceeds 10 crores in the previous financial year, which means for the financial year 1920, if the turnover is more than 10 crore, then this particular section is applicable for the current year, which means I have to start collecting TCS from today onwards. Okay, so the terms and conditions we are going to discuss in the further slides. So this is one major condition for the TCS. And the second point is if the sale of sale of goods to a particular buyer exceeds 50 lakhs in the current financial year, then this TCS will be applicable. So I am an organization and my turnover is more than 10 crores in the previous year. In that case, if I'm going to sell a product to a particular buyer more than 50 lakhs in this particular financial year, it is not one transaction, it is multiple transactions put together. If I exceed more than 50 lakhs, then I have to start collecting TCS from my buyer from the beginning. I mean, it is not only for the amount exceeds 50 lakhs, it is for the entire amount. So the threshold limit is 50 lakhs. So this is one major change in our the accounting process itself. See, all these days when we used to collect deduct TDS or collect TCS based on the invoice date, right? So when I raise the invoice, I'm liable to deduct TDS and I am liable to pay TDS within the time limit that the CVDT has given. But here, the TCS liability arises when I receive the payment from my buyer. So yeah, when I sell a product, I raise an invoice. But in that time, I am not liable to collect or pay the TCS to the government. The liability arises only when I receive the payment from the buyer. So this is one major impact in our system. So we have to set a right system to accommodate the major change. So there are some exceptions under this section also. So wherever we do the export of goods, for the export of goods, this particular section is not applicable and there is no TCS. And if the TDS is applicable for particular transaction, then TCS will not be applicable. So it is simple. When I have a TDS, I don't have to collect TCS. It is very simple. And is applicable for all this 206C of 1F or 1H or 1G, whatever it is. When the TDS is applicable, TCS is not applicable. Simple. And the same, like if we have a central government or state government or local authority, if the buyer is from the government organizations, then we do not have to collect TCS. Apart from that, we also have the existing products, right? Existing goods, which we discussed in the first and second slide. So for those goods, it is not applicable. I mean, this 1H is not applicable because we already deduct under 206C of 1, right? So this section is not applicable to deduct TCS. So, I mean, this is about the changes that we have from today onwards, that 1G and 1H. See, it is about the conceptual information that I have provided, but see, still we have more points to discuss because there are so many clarifications or questions in our mind. How are we going to take it forward from today onwards, though the due date is from today, but there are so many questions and clarifications that we need. So day before, I think 2 days back, CBDT has given a clarification for some of the items. So based on that, we have framed some of the questions and guidelines that CBDT has given. So we wanted to give that information to you, and also we have some more clarity in further slides. So where the TCS is applicable, which is not applicable, all those common questions. And so it is, we all know that the invoice contains the price of goods and the indirect tax, which is GST, and the total invoice value. So the TCS is applicable only for the price of the goods. And we should not calculate TCS on tax or whatever additional things that we are going to say, but this is applicable only for the sale value of the particular product. This is clear, right? Because most of us will have this particular question of which amount that I have to collect TCS. And since this particular change is applicable from today onwards, which is mid of the financial year, so the 1st October is exactly the mid of the financial year, and we have so many questions of what has to be done for the invoices which I have received, which I've raised in the previous previous 6 months from April to September. So if I have raised the invoice before October 2020, what is the process that I have to follow? So here is the answer, right? So if you receive the payment before October 2020, which means you have raised the invoice before 30th September, and you also receive the payment within the timeline, then there is no TCS. You don't have to worry about the TCS part. But you have raised the invoice before 30th of September, on or before 30th of September, and the payment is going to receive maybe today or after this date, then the TCS is, we have to collect the TCS. TCS is applicable for those invoices. Because as we discussed in the previous slide, the TCS is on the receipt basis. It is on the payment. When I receive the payment, I liable to collect the TCS. So even though the invoice was raised before the 30th of September, I am going to receive the payment only after that period. So which means I have to collect the TCS for those invoices. This is about the TCS part. Whatever I have raised the invoice before October, 1st October 2020. And the major question that we have, from when I have to calculate the threshold limit. So we have discussed, right? So this is applicable for the sale of more than 50 lakhs for a particular buyer. So whether I should calculate from today onwards to calculate the threshold limit, or I should consider from April 1st onwards. So though the TCS is applicable from today, but we have to calculate the threshold from 1st April 2020, which means I have to see how much that I have billed to a particular customer and what I'm going to bill it from today onwards. So I have to add everything together and I have to calculate the threshold. So it is not from 1st October, it is from 1st April. This is very important. Please do not miss this. And TCS on motor vehicle, right? So we all know that it is that there is a TCS for some of the vehicle that we buy. For example, if this is the section of 1F which we already have seen in the previous slide. So when I buy a motor vehicle more than 10 lakhs, then the TCS is applicable at 1%. But here, I think at 1%, yeah. If it is a single sale value which is more than 10 lakhs, then the TCS is applicable under 1F. And this particular section is only applicable for consumers and it is not applicable for the dealers. As of yesterday, I mean till 30th September, this is the case. And this is going to continue further as well, that if I buy a vehicle more than 10 lakhs, then I have to comply with section 1F, which is nothing but I have to pay additional 1% of TCS to the dealer. And the new section about 1H, so this is applicable for both consumers and dealers. So this, I mean, we all know that the threshold is 50 lakhs, right? So when we have a single or multiple sale value more than 50 lakhs, then this 1H is applicable at 0.1%, as we saw in the previous slide. So here, this is applicable for the dealers as well as consumers. So as a consumer, if I buy more than one vehicle, maybe which is all less than 10 lakhs, but if I buy 5 or 6 vehicles, which the put together it will be more than 50 lakhs. So in that case, I have to pay TCS under 1H. And if it is a dealer, I mean, usually for the dealers, it will exceed 50 lakhs, right? So for those, I mean, all dealers has to comply with 1H, which is at 0.1%. So, I mean, from this, we can able to understand that the vehicle price is going to increase. So we have to be very cautious here. So, I mean, this is the impact that as a consumer, we are going to see in the, I mean, from today onwards. So, in case sale of motor vehicle covered in the section 1F, and then 1H will not be applicable, which is nothing but if I've already paid 1F for a particular vehicle, and if I'm crossing, for some reason I'm buying some other vehicle and I'm crossing 50 lakhs, then this 1H will not be applicable because I've already paid 1F. That's why. So I mean, this is a little bit confusing, right? So to give a clarity, we have actually prepared a table which explains with very, will give you more clarity on this particular topic. So when it is a dealer, if I buy less than 50 lakhs, there is no TCS. If I'm going to buy more than 50 lakhs, then TCS is applicable under 1H, which is 0.1% of the vehicle value. And if it is a consumer, right, so for the consumer only it is more confusing. Okay, so that is why the table looks like a little bit bigger. So if for the consumer, if we buy buy a vehicle less than 10 lakhs, and that, I mean, maybe I buy more than one vehicle also in the same financial year, but put together if it is less than 50 lakhs, I won't come under TCS liability at all. And if I buy a vehicle more than 10 lakhs and less than 50 lakhs put together, right? So in this case, I have to pay 1F. And if it is vice versa, then it will be 1H. And if it is more than 10 lakhs, more than 50 lakhs, then 1F will be applicable. Okay, we will be sharing this presentation anyways. I mean, you can go through this whenever you have doubt, or I mean, if you have further clarifications also, we can discuss in our question answer session. So the major item on this TCS, we have to see how are we going to consider, or how are we going to take the adjustments on TCS, right? So there is no adjustments can be made on sale return or discount or indirect taxes for the purpose of tax collection, which means whether you receive a sale return or discount or indirect, or indirect taxes, we cannot do the adjustments in the TCS. We have to pay whatever is necessary in the TCS. We cannot do any adjustments. It is, I mean, this is a non-resident airlines. This is just to give you an information. So when we bill, I mean, when we have a non-resident airlines, I mean, we have so many airlines which is not from India, right? So if they fuel in India, then this TCS will not be applicable because it is anyway a non-resident, and we have already discussed that export of goods will not be applicable for TCS. So this particular item also not come under TCS. It is an information. So these are the information and the percentage of TCS that we have to collect, and for what are the goods that are applicable. So we have seen all that, right? So this is about the company's point of view, and it is about the business point of view, that what we have to do from today onwards. And apart from that, there are some reporting and compliance requirements, right? It is always there whenever there is a change and there are compliance requirements increases in India. So we have to see what are the reporting that we have to do and what are the compliance requirements that we have to do as an organization. See, in this part, if you are already in TCS, I mean, for some existing items, if you are already collecting TCS, the same reporting and compliance requirements will be continued from today onwards. But for some companies are actually I mean, for TCS is applicable for some companies only from today. They may not have had the other products in the previous period. So for those people, we would like to give you this information, that the TCS payment is as usual like TDS. If we are going to collect in a particular month, we have to pay the TCS to the government before 7th of the next month. So it is same like TDS. And also we have to file it with CBDT, which is every quarter, and the due date will be 15th of the subsequent month of the particular quarter. So for TDS, if you see, it is the end of the month. So for example, we can take the first quarter, which is April, May, June. For Q1, we have to file the TDS return on 31st of July. But for TCS, we have to file the return within 15th of July. The same applies for other quarters as well, for Q2, Q3 and Q4. And for Q4, usually it will be in the May month. It is not in the month of April because of the year closure. So in the month of May, within 15th of May, we have to file the Q4 returns of TCS. So we'll be collecting the TCS on a monthly basis. We'll be making the payment on a monthly basis, I mean, the subsequent month before 7th, and we'll be filing the returns on a quarterly basis. And this compliance will not end here. We also have to issue the certificates to our customers, to our buyers. The form, I mean, the certificate name is Form 27D. See, usually for Form 16, it is, I mean, for vendors, it is Form 16A, right? For TDS, it is Form 16A. But here for TCS, it is Form 27D. This we have to issue within 15 days of the filing date. So if I'm filing the return on 15th of July, I have to issue the certificate within 30th of July. So this is the compliance requirement that we have to follow. And there are some interest and penalty if we do not comply with these timelines, right? So it is same like TDS. I mean, I'm just comparing with TDS because we are all familiar with TDS, so it'll be easy for you to understand about this particular concept also. So that's why I'm just comparing all the time with TDS. So as like TDS, the interest on late payment will be 1.5% per month. The same way, interest on short deduction. It is not short deduction, it is, by the way, short collection. It is 1% per month. And the late filing fee will be 200 rupees, 200, same like TDS. I mean, if we are not able to file within the timeline, then we have to pay 200 rupees per day, up to the limit of the TCS, the total TCS that we have collected in the particular quarter. For example, I have delayed for 15 days. The levy that I have to pay is about 3,000 rupees. But if I have collected TCS only for 1,000 rupees in the previous quarter, then the penalty which I have to pay is only 1,000 rupees. It is not 3,000 rupees. So these are the penalty items that we have to see. See, we have to be very careful when we do this particular process, because it is on the payment basis, right? It is not on the invoice date. It is on the payment date. So we may miss some items. So we have to build certain process and systems to make sure that everything is going in the right way. So we have some action items that we have to see that how to take it forward. I mean, what are the things that we have to consider, we have to prepare before we go into this particular process. The first items is invoice format. So there is a specific invoice template where you have to mention the TCS in the invoice when you are raising the invoice to your customer. So you have to also mention the TCS amount in the invoice. That is one major item. And the second item is, we have to build a system, or we have to build a process to raise, to collect the appropriate TCS from our customer at the actual rate. See, because there is a threshold, right? So we have to keep track on the threshold also. Maybe for some people, in the first 6 months, it may be less, very less, maybe like 10 lakhs. But suddenly, if they're going to purchase for 20 or 30 lakhs, then we have to keep a track on the threshold limit, and we have to collect the accurate TCS. The same way, we are discussing about the from the seller point of view, right? We also maybe a purchase, buyer for some other product. So we have to see how we are collecting the TCS from our, the TCS credit from our seller, which means from the suppliers, whether we are getting the right TCS in our Form 26 AS. So we have to have the system for that as well, to get the TCS credit in our 26 AS. So, we may have some more action items that we have to look into it. Maybe I think in the question answer session, if you have any other items that you want to mention, please mention, so that other participant can understand that. So based on our viewpoint, we have mentioned these three items. There are some more items which may be useful for all the participants who are available here. So if you have any idea, please mention it in the chat. So now we are going to start the question answer session. I would like to request everyone to give your questions on the chat, so that my team will respond. And if there are some specific questions, I'll be answering those questions. Thank you so much. I am just receiving questions from our audience, and there's one question from Aparida. That's right. Aparida. I think I'm referring to some other questions. Which is the her question? Okay, the last question.
And the threshold.
She has already exceeded the threshold limit now. So whatever the receipt that you get, outstanding from a customer as on 31/3/2020 is 60 lakhs, and sale from April to September is 50 lakh, and we receive collection of 60 lakhs. Then how TCS will be computed? Whatever the receipt, I'm going to get it. No, this is the outstanding in the previous financial year. That's if she is going to receive now, whether TCS is applicable, she is asking. Yes, ma'am. Because whatever the thing. So, Parida, I got your question that you're asking whether the TCS is applicable for the outstanding payment that is for the previous financial year, and if we receive it now after 1st October, whether the TCS is applicable. Yes, it is applicable. We have to collect TCS for that particular. Whatever the payment you receive from 1st October, the TCS is applicable. I'm just referring the other questions. The question from Kumaran. See, our business is software export to our group companies, China, Swiss, USA, Germany, and question is TCS applicable? See, if you're booking as an export, like whether it is a group company or not, but if you're booking this particular sale as an export, then TCS will not be applicable. Hi everyone, I would like to create a poll now. I would like to ask a particular questions to everyone. I kindly request everyone to give your answer for the poll. We are going to give it 30 seconds. Please give your poll. How many percentages that we received?
48% voted.
We have received a 50% vote. I kindly request everyone to give your answer, please. Thank you. What is the next question?
TCS is applicable on goods only and not services.
Got the answer? Yeah. So there is another question, another interesting question that we have is TCS is applicable on goods only or and not on the services. So, I mean, for the services, we already already deduct TDS. So there is no TCS applicable. And also this TCS is applicable. The new change that we have is only for sale of goods, not for the services. Hope I have answered your question, Mr. Kumaran. Sorry, I think this question is from Sohali. Yes, Kumaran, for the export, there is no TCS. There is a question from Mr. R.S. Mohan Kumar, whether TCS to be calculated after GST charged, that is invoice total value. No, the TCS should be calculated before GST, it is not after GST. Whatever is the sale value of the particular product, right? So we have to collect the TCS only on that value, not on the total value of the invoice.
We shared in my screen and I've stopped with yours. Okay.
So we're just receiving some more questions. I'm just going through the questions. What about deemed exports for related receipts on TCS? There is no TCS applicable for that as well, Mr. Chandrasekhar. If the TCS is applicable on consideration receipt during the month, then why it has to be included in the invoice? I'm not able to understand his question.
No, actually his question is TCS is applicable only on receiving it, right, at the time of receivable. Right? Why he is asking why I have to include the same.
So, Mr. Nanjundeshwar, your question is like if the TCS is applicable on consideration received during the month, then why it has to be included in the invoice? See, you have to give the value to your customer, right? So you have to mention it in the invoice. Otherwise, your customer may not know what is the amount that he has to pay additionally with your invoice value, with your sale value, exactly. What is the due date of payment of TCS in case of March? The payment date for TCS as on today for March is 7th April. I mean, we have the extension for salary and others, right, till April 30th. But for TCS, we have to make it before on or before 7th of April. This is a question from Aprita. Hope I've answered your question, Aprita. TCS is applicable only on goods and not on services. I'm clarifying, Mr. Priyanka, there is no TCS on the services. TCS will not be applicable on the GST. TCS is applicable only on the product value, not on the GST. Yes, I think Naveen have already answered this question. Rashir, hope you got the answer. Divya, our question is, good morning. Our concern is our software. We do software development services to domestic and abroad as well. My question is that for domestic sales, we deduct GST. Apart from GST, we need to deduct TCS. See, I think your question is like you are already collecting GST for the domestic sales and you wanted to know whether you also have to collect TCS for this particular sale. Yes, you have to collect the TCS for your domestic sales, Divya. There is no TCS applicable for your abroad sales, but whatever you do it in the domestic, you have to collect the TCS. So there's a question from Varun Anand. Sales made and payment received against invoice. Sales made and payment received against invoice later material got rejected. We have to refund the payment. Yes, you have to refund the payment, but you cannot refund the TCS, Mr. Varun. That is what we have seen in the adjustment slide, right? So you cannot adjust the TCS when you do a sale return, or I mean, when you do a sale return transaction, you cannot return the TCS amount. You can return only the sales value. I got your point, Chandrasekhar, that you are mentioning that TCS has to be calculated on the GST as well. See, as per our understanding, there is no TCS on the GST. But anyways, we will check once again. Maybe when we are sharing the PPT, we will give you the clarity on this, or we will give you clarity in the separate email. Yes, Chandrasekhar, we will share you the notification on this. There is no exemption in the TCS for these kind of goods, Smita. Like you have mentioned the can for blind, wheelchair, all that, right? So there is no exemption which was given for the TCS for these products. Divya, you have asked another question that if we expect the sale will cross 50 lakhs, we deduct TCS from the client, but we didn't do the sale up to that level. In that case, what is the procedure? So if you already know that you are going to sell more than 50 lakhs, then you have to start collecting the TCS from the day one. And if you are not very sure whether the particular client is going to going to buy more than 50 lakhs, then you have to wait for the threshold limit, Divya. And if it is going to cross 50 lakhs, then you have to collect TCS from the, for the entire amount. It is not only for the amount which was exceeded 50 lakhs. You have to collect for the entire amount.
Akash, with your permission, rather, I would like to answer Mr. Chandrasekhar's question. This is regarding the deduction of TCS on GST. So there is not going to be any deduction of TCS on GST if your invoice, the GST value or the VAT value or the tax value is mentioned separately. So I'd like to, with your permission, I'd like to answer Mr. Chandrasekhar's question. Hi, my name is Akash. So with that being said, Mr. Chandrasekhar's question is actually very important. We need to understand how this TCS is applicable. So there are two types of invoices. One type of invoice is where you are showing separately that this is your product value. Let's say your product value is 500 rupees. And then the tax on that product value is at the rate of 12% or at the rate of 18% GST or at the rate of 28% GST, whatever it is. So that is also being shown. And then you have the total value. So if this is how your invoice is going to be, then TCS will be applicable on the product value, not on GST. But there are also some sellers who say, okay, the total cost is 600 inclusive of all taxes. They don't show separately what is the rate of tax. So if that is the case, then we will have to have TCS on the whole of that 600 rupees if tax value is not defined and is not separate. I think that will help. Thank you.
Thank you, Akash, for clarifying your question. I'm reading the further questions. I'm not able to understand your question, Amrita. Invoice prior to collection receipt, then how to show TCS in invoice? See, I hope you're asking the question for the invoices which you raised between April to October. And if you're going to receive the payment only now, then you have to collect TCS. So for those cases, you are referring, you are asking this question, right? So in this case, you cannot mention it in the invoice separate because you've already shared the invoice. You may have to mention the amount to your customer and you have to collect this TCS, what is applicable for that particular invoice value. The next question is from RS Mohan. Please share the notification for TCS to be charged before GST. Yes, we will share when we are sharing this particular PPT. There is a question from Rajshekara Babu. Shall we raise any debit notes to customers for collection in October sales made in September? Collection in October, sales made in September. Okay. Yeah, you can do that, Rajshekhara. You can do you can raise a debit note to collect this particular TCS from your customers. I think the same go with Aprida also. I think Aprida also asked the same question that whether we can, how to mention the TCS value on the invoice. So you can issue the debit note, Aprida. For Aparita, you have a question for the advance amount, right? For the advance that you raise, advance that you receive for the sale. So when you receive an advance, also you have to collect the TCS. It is on the receipt basis, right? So if you, whether you receive before the invoice or after the invoice, you have to collect the TCS. Ramesh Sridevi, your question is you are already collecting the GST for deemed export and you are getting a refund. But for the export, there is no TCS. And if you collect the TCS also, there is no way that you can. It has to be a tax credit only. There is no other way that you can adjust like GST. Aparida, your question is how to know the TCS amount while issuing invoice when we do not know how much we'll receive in future. See, I think when you are issuing the invoice, definitely you will be aware that what is the sale value of the particular product, right? So based on that only you have to collect the TCS. You cannot raise invoice without knowing the sale value, right? So the TCS is applicable on the sale value. We are doing software service, not software product sale. For software service, TCS is applicable. So for the service, anyway, the TDS is applicable, right? So there is no TCS for the software service. When it is a software product, there is a clarification in the software product. So when you do a customized software product, the TDS is applicable. So in that case, you don't have to collect TCS. And when you sell a standard software product to a customer, in that case, there is no TDS, and then you have to collect the TCS. If buyer doesn't pay the TCS, then whose liability it is? Good question, Sohali. It is a rule that everyone has to follow the rule. If your customer is not ready to bear the cost, then you have to bear the cost. On receipt, we collect TCS, raise the debit note for the amount, or better to add in invoice. Which one is opt? Any reconciliation work is there to submit with the department. So Chandrasekhar, as of now, the reporting is only on the filing, the quarterly filing that we are doing, right? That is the only reporting that we have to do. There is no reconciliation report that we have to submit to the department, but definitely we need it for our internal audit purpose and statutory audit purposes, right? So, it depends on your process. How do you want to take it forward? Whether you want to issue the debit note or you want to add it in the invoice. However, it is applicable for you, but there is no guideline or the instructions from the CBDT for this particular point. Sorry, Yadu, I'm not able to understand what is this BC service. Can you just give a clarity on your question? What's it mean? Nanjundeshwar, your question is like there are some cases where client will not pay the 100% payment, they may deduct for some reason, right? I mean, there are so many reasons. I think you have mentioned if there is a damage, or if you're not able to deliver within the timeline, then they may deduct some of the amount based on your PO. So in that case, you cannot adjust the TCS value in Nanjundeshwar. Whatever is applicable for the sale value, you have to collect the TCS for that amount. If they are going to do a reduction in your invoice value also, you cannot reduce the TCS. TCS has to be collected for the actual value, not on the discounted value. There is a question from Durai Swami. If we include TCS in invoice and collection takes time, seller is bound to remit tax before 7th of the subsequent month. Instead, we can raise a debit note at the month end on receipt and remit the TCS. So Duresami, there is, I mean, it is on the receipt basis, right? You don't have to pay TCS from the invoice date. I mean, invoice date is not the liability month. It is on the receipt date. So, for example, if you are going to raise an invoice in the month of October and you are going to raise the payment in the month of December, then the liability starts in the month of December. Then the TCS you have to pay within 7th of January. It is not. It is not in 7th of November. So you don't have to worry about it. It is on the receipt basis. So you don't have to issue a debit note and create complexities on your accounting process. There is another question which Akash would like to take it up. Yes, Akash, please.
Morning once again. So Chandrasekhar has a interesting question. Final liabilities on the seller if the buyer fails to pay the TCS portion. This liability arises from the month of receipt from the buyer to be discharged by the 7th of the next month. So this is actually, I will split this question into two. Point number one, when is the TCS liability arising? So the TCS liability arises the minute we receive money from the buyer. We are the seller. The minute buyer gives money to us, the TCS liability arises. So just like TDS, right? If the buyer gives it on the 15th or on the 20th or on the 25th or on the 8th, we have to remit the TCS before the 7th of the subsequent month. If the seller does not pay, sorry, if the buyer does not pay us at all, then the TCS liability does not arise at all. If the if the buyer has made a partial payment, let us say your total invoice value is 1 crore, out of which, so for this total invoice value of 1 crore, TCS is definitely applicable. Now, the buyer has made a partial payment of, let us say, 50 lakhs. Then in that case, for that 50 lakhs, TCS has to be, the liability of the TCS arises for the seller, that is for us, and we have to make the payment. Right? So I hope that clarifies. And that there is also this interesting question that again Mr. Chandrasekhar has asked about what are the mechanisms department is having to check the value and its TCS. See, I think this will get arrested during statutory audits and tax audits, because there is no mechanism that the department has to check invoice to invoice, but that is what the auditor's job is. During the end of the financial year, when we undertake statutory audit or tax audit, as the case may be, the auditors are going to check if we have complied with the rules and regulations of TCS, and if we have not complied, they will make us comply, so that our financial statements don't have an adverse remark. So I think that mechanism, whatever is the current mechanism, will continue to be fulfilled. But probably in the future, Chandrasekhar, I think what we can anticipate is
when the GSTN, the GST network, starts sharing data to the income tax department, and then e-invoicing is also applicable to a lot more. Currently, it's going to be applicable only for 500 company, 500 crore turnover and above companies. But when the when e-invoicing becomes a norm, I'm not talking about the next 6 months or 1 year, but I'm talking about 5 years or 10 years hence, then there will be a lot more control and a lot more transparency probably. They will check with both. Statutory auditors will check with both the sale value as well as the receipt, right? So the regulation of TCS is on receipt whether we have discharged our liability or not, and I'm sure they'll be able to do that. Thank you. Radha, back to you, please.
Thank you, Akash. There is a question from Aparita that we sold 70 lakhs plus 18% GST of 12.6 lakhs, and the total is about 82.6, and we received 90 lakhs from the client, and how to consider this TCS. So I'm not sure how. Why you have mentioned 90 lakh, maybe for the previous payment or maybe an advance payment, because the liability is only 82.6, right? But since you are receiving the payment of 90 lakh, so if the balance amount is for advance, then for that amount also you have to collect TCS. And if it is not for the advance, one second. Yes. So if you are receiving for the previous invoices, then you have to see how much amount that you are collecting for the sale value and how much is for the GST. So here, if you have given the example of 70 plus 12.6, right? Here you have to collect TCS for 70 lakhs. Okay, and for the balance amount, whatever additional amount that you have received, you have to check what is the why you have received that particular amount. Based on that, you have to take a decision. Hope I have clarified you, Aparita. Hope Chandrasekhar's question was answered by Akash. I am going for the next question. TCS is applicable only GST charged invoice or not? I mean, we should not relate TCS and GST together. I mean, we should not compare with these two items, because TCS is applicable on all sale of goods. So GST may be applicable, may not be applicable for the some companies, because when there is an SEC GST, it may not be applicable, and there are some exemptions for GST, right? But TCS is not like that. If you are going to sell a product which are coming under the sections which we discussed, then you have to collect TCS, though you may not have collect GST. There is a question from Anandi. TCS is applicable for high C sales. What is that? Sorry, Anandi, I'm not able to get it. 1 second. Let me get a help from my team for this particular question.
You go to the next one.
That's all I think.
Last 2 minutes only. Last 2 minutes.
I hope I've answered all the questions. This last, we have 2 minutes more. If you have any questions, please put it in the chat.
That is, high sea sales is when the goods are in the sea. We don't. So it depends on who's the seller and who's the buyer. It does not matter where the goods are. If the seller and the buyer both are, Indian resident Indian companies,
Yeah. Anandi, I mean, I got a clarity on your questions that you have asked whether TCS is applicable for high sea sales. So I think you are mentioning if the goods is not delivered or if the goods are there in the sea, then whether TCS is applicable. See, it is not about where is the good and what is the process. If the seller and buyer both are in India, then the TCS is applicable. See, once you sell a product to a customer, which is applicable for all the terms and conditions that we discussed, in that case, you have to collect the TCS from your customer when you receive the payment.
Correct. On that Balasundaram CS question.
I think it will be considered as good, right? Yeah.
Applicable. It won't be exclusive.
See, there's a question from Mr. Balasundaram, CA. Can you clarify about TCS on SCC sales? Will it be considered as an export sales? See, for the GST purposes, there are some exemptions for the GST if you are in SEC, but in TCS there is no exemption if you are in SEC. So if you make a sale to SEC companies, TCS will be applicable. See, it is like TDS, right? So how the TDS is applicable, the same way TCS also has to be collected for these sales. To summarize, if there is a consideration advance, TCS will be shown then. You are right, Aprida. You're right. See, if you're going to raise an invoice from today onwards, it is obvious that we will include the TCS. So for the previous invoices, we may have to issue the debit notes.
If they exceed
50 lakhs, then they will.
and if they exceed 50 lakhs and if they don't come under TDS,
Yes, sir.
then TCS will be applicable.
That service is.
Few service exempted from GST.
Hi, Yadu, your question will be answered on the chat. So, Aprida, the question is like if TCS applicable for high sea sales to India customer. Yeah, TCS will be applicable. It is from India to India, it is a domestic sale, right? So it is not an export, so you have to collect TCS. I hope, we are able to answer most of the questions here. If you have further questions, please send out an email, you can reach out to us. I've mentioned my LinkedIn profile as well, so that you can connect me on the LinkedIn. So thank you so much, all of you, to join for this webinar. Hope it will be useful for you. If you have further questions or clarifications, you can always reach out to us. Thank you so much for joining. So with this, I'm going to close this meeting. Thank you.